Hello, everybody, and thank you again for tuning in to the Trajectory Podcast. Today is how many times have we done this now?
Sam, what is it? 5? Fifth one.
That's a whole hand, guys. So thank you for showing up. There's a bunch of people that are not watching, so next time, forget you because you guys are the important ones, right? Anyway. Today, so my name's Scotty Carlisle, and we've been doing this for a little over a year. Can introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jake Itamura. It's been since October of not last year, but the year before. So quite a bit every week, every Wednesday, but just recently started doing it as a podcast.
Yeah. And, the thing about Trajectory on a serious note is we have different speakers that come here to help us discern different things in life, and we draw from their experiences. And some of the people that we get to show up here and grace us with our presence are really amazing people. Today is one of those days, no pressure, but we have an amazing guest that has an amazing story, and she's doing a bunch of really cool things that I guarantee you guys haven't seen it before. Unless you know her, then you know. But before we get into Safari K she's kind of a local legend, like really, she really is. Everybody knows who she is in Eastvale. But before we get into your story, there's a couple things, just, I guess it would be standard, almost like house cleaning items where we talk about what it is that we're doing with Trajectory. You want to take over?
Yeah, I mean, the idea for Trajectory, for me is like anybody that has some sort of story or some sort of bit of knowledge or experience that they think could help the trajectory of someone else's life, then we want to talk to you. And then really this community that we're building is, of course, for people who want to elevate themselves. But what we found is we actually get more out of it when we help other people. So it's really a community of helping each other. That's what we're trying to do. So we did a book, and we're on volume 2 right now for the book. But the first book became a #1 bestseller. So that
in
was
2 categories.
2 categories. Yeah, and so that book was put together by 19 different authors. Some of which are actually in this room. And that's the same thing that we're doing for volume 2. We're gonna bring in, I think 25 is the number that we're trying to aim for.
And there's 13 slots left.
13 slots left to try to, you can get bestseller status, hopefully. We pulled it off the first time. We plan on doing it again, really to kind of give yourself a little amplifier on your voice, but also for a legacy and allowing people to hear your story, because the experience was pretty amazing, especially some of the stories, the feedback that we got when they had the ability to share their story with others and people reading them and, learning something new about somebody that you've known your whole life is pretty amazing.
Yeah. One cool story with the book, there's a girl, Lucy, that was abandoned when she was 5 years old in a little village in Mexico. So she doesn't know her real name. She doesn't know her birthday. She doesn't have any pictures of her when she was a kid. She also had 2 younger siblings. And basically, she ended up making it over here. It's a longer story, I guess, but then got put into the foster system, had other abandonment issues. Again, didn't know, who her parents were, any of that. But through the book, somebody connected her to that little village in Mexico. And there was a lady there that actually had a picture of her as a little girl. So again, doesn't know her actual name, doesn't know her birthday, didn't know what she looked like as a kid. Now she has a picture. And so just that's one little story of a bunch of stories. And so don't want to keep kicking that, but I think it's important to at least discuss and let people know, what it is that we're doing.
Yeah. So that's one of the main things. And the other thing is we're doing an online community where we're trying to bring in people that come in person and people that are, on the internet, and try to really just, the goal that we have is help each other reach their goals. If you have some sort of goal that you're trying to achieve, trying to elevate yourself in some way, then we want to provide all the resources we can and work as a group to get everybody to lift each other up. So that's the online community that we're putting together. Just kind of launched it, but we're still in the building process, but hopefully that it'll make an impact, and I think it will in the long run.
I definitely think it will. And we invite everybody here to join us, and everybody out there. The idea is to engage. The more people that we get to engage in a conversation to help each other, the better everybody becomes. So this is an open invitation. Please join the group, join the conversation, engage. And again, it's not about what you can get out of it. It's about how you can help others. And we've seen so many different synchronicities since we've been doing this group. It's just amazing. So is there anything else, or is that pretty much covers it?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I guess.
Because I want to get,
Yeah.
I want to start, like, this is the important thing. Maybe we should have gone to talk to her first.
Yeah.
Because she's just sitting there very quietly. And
I'm listening because I think what you're doing is amazing. I met you at the Eastvale Chamber and you were talking about what you did. And I met you here at one of the events, and I said I was going to come speak, but thank you for asking me today.
Yeah, again, synchronicity, right? And we just somebody happened to, they weren't able to make it, and then we were at that event, and I'm really excited the fact that you came here. I'm really excited. So thank you very much for being a guest. So Safari K, right? What you do is very unique, and so I want you to explain to everybody, maybe introduce yourself, and then explain to everyone what you do, and then I want to get to the bottom of what caused you to go in that direction.
Okay.
So,
all right. So some of you know me, and you know what I do. I see some Eastvale Chamber members here because I belong to the Eastvale Chamber. My name is Kay Trotman, but I'm better known in the community as Safari K. Now, why would you think they call me Safari K? Because it's not my real name. Okay. Name is Kay. I own a safari company in Tanzania, Africa. So a lot of people, when I tell them that, they like Safari Park. Nope. Like Safari Park in Africa, the real safari. So I've been in business since 2006 was my first trip to Tanzania. Not my first trip to Africa, but my first trip to Tanzania, which is where the Serengeti is, and this is where I do my safaris. I have 2 vehicles that I own outright, and I have 3 drivers that are available to me that do my safaris, and I escort so far in those 20 years, I have escorted every single safari. And I've probably escorted more than 75 of them, probably been there 100 times. I think the most that people want to know is how in the world did this lady from Chicago that ended up in California and now ended up in Africa? How did that happen? And that's the story.
Okay. So has anybody here been to Africa?
Wow.
You've been there? Where to?
Gabon. Okay. Lowland gorillas. Okay. Did you go for a visit or? Oh, for there? Okay. I was going to say you had to probably have a job there because there's not a lot of infrastructure in Gabon. I have not been, but I know that. So good for you. Gabon is in West Africa, not exactly the area that I work in, which is East Africa. There's 54 countries in Africa, and just like the United States, Africa is 3 times bigger than the United States. So that's how big it is. And of the 54 countries, I can't tell you that I've been to 40 of them or 30 of them, but I've been to 13 of the safari destinations, and of course Tanzania. So how did I get started? That's what you want to know, right?
Well, okay, why Tanzania?
Well, okay, so let me tell you a little bit first, and then I'll tell you why Tanzania. So I worked for Los Angeles County for, should I say, 38 years? And 38 years as HR director. And it was a great job, great pay. Everything was good about the job. But there came a time that I had some tragedies in my life, and I lost my mom. You know, we all lose our parents, and that's understandable. But shortly after my mom passed away, which was devastating to me because I was just buying a house and she was going to move in, and she suddenly passed away. But shortly after that, I was in an accident and I was incapacitated for about a year and a half. Someone broadsided me. I didn't have the use of my legs or my arms or pretty much anything. And life was very, very challenging at the time. And I didn't really think when you're not well, you don't think that you're going to come through it. So I didn't think I was going to get through it. I thought I was going to be crippled the rest of my life and I would have to deal with that. But as God had another plan for me, I recovered, and I was, after being off of work for about a year and a half, I returned to work. My brothers, I had three brothers. They took care of me while I was not working because I couldn't do anything. Shortly after, and I was still recovering from, you know, the accident, so I really couldn't do anything. I had to sleep downstairs. I couldn't walk up the stairs. It's just a lot of things were going on off work. My brother from San Francisco came to take care of me. When he left, my other brother from Malibu came to take care of me, and then my brother from Lake Elsinore. So for a year and a half, they gave up part of their life to help take care of me. When I got back to work, this is the hard part. So
Yeah.
my youngest brother passed away, just fell over and died. And so it knocked me for a loop because here I'm not well. I can't move. I can't do anything. And so, I went back off of work again, and I was depressed. I was literally, I've never been depressed in my life, but I was depressed. And so I had to pick myself up and try to move on. So eventually I went back to work. Within a month after I went back to work, I got a call from someone at 9 o'clock at night. He said, "Okay, you don't know me, but I'm a friend of your brother's. I'm really sorry to tell you this, but your brother died." This was my second brother, not the one that just had passed away. So this was maybe 2 months later. And I just, I went into shock, I think. I actually, that night, I thought I was having a heart attack. And my neighbor, I called my neighbor and she called 911 and I went to the hospital. And but I found out I was going to live. But I was even more depressed then. And still keep in mind, I was still recovering from the accident that I was in. So I couldn't drive, I couldn't do a lot of things. And I was depressed, simply depressed. Shortly after that, I had to figure out life again without my brothers. You know, we all kind of live with the idea that our parents are going to pass because they're already older, but you don't live with the idea that you're going to lose siblings. I know a lot of people lose people, but I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for it maybe because I was not able to take care of myself. Maybe I wasn't prepared for it because my brothers and I had made plans for the rest of our life. Then a couple of years later, my third brother had a heart attack. He did not die. He is alive today with a pacemaker. But life, as I knew it, was not the same. And after about 3 years of living this way, pretty much living to die, because I was the third one in line, and first my youngest brother, then my next youngest brother, then it would be me. I basically was living to die. And I didn't want to die on my job. So after 38 years, I retired. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but as an HR director, you know, you have to be involved in your employees and your employees' problems in their life. And I couldn't even get my life together at that point. So I ended up going on medical leave first and then retiring. And during this time, I decided that I needed to get away to clear my mind, to just be in another space. I didn't feel good at home anymore. So I was a part-time travel agent for the whole time that I worked for the county. And what I decided to do was to look for some trip or something that would take me away from my environment. And there were 2 trips available that were going to operate in within a month. Because if I made the trip longer than a month, I knew I was going to change my mind. I just knew it. So there was 2 trips available, one to Hawaii and one to Africa. Now, the only thing I knew about Africa, this trip that was going to Africa, was I knew that Tanzania, had the Serengeti. That's all I knew because I watched a lot of Nat Geo, And so I knew that I didn't want to go to Hawaii. So to show you how your thoughts are when you're not well, I thought if I went to Hawaii, that's too close. And so my thoughts and my memories would be there. But if I went farther, I wasn't going to think about that. Now, I don't know what kind of sense that made, but, but that's the way I was thinking then. So I decided to go to Africa. Now, you asked me why Tanzania. Tanzania was a trip that changed my life because I was actually going downhill and I didn't know what
Mentally or physically?
Both, because I wasn't well enough to take care of myself. So I was slipping, I didn't go to physical therapy, didn't have anybody to take me. I was just in my mind, I just was feeling like life was over. And I'd already retired. So I decided that I didn't want to live that way because I was basically waking up in the morning, hoping the night would come really fast so that the next day could come. And, I was just living my life like that, because I didn't have my brother's job. And so, I had to do something. I was smart enough to know that I couldn't live like that. I think when you're depressed, you're in a whole different world. And that's the first time I ever had that feeling of being depressed. Sometimes you're upset about a day or something in your life, but 3 years of living like that was not fun, So when I went to Tanzania, what I found was people who were friendly, open, welcoming, it was as if they could look inside of me and see the hurt and the pain that I was in, but I never said anything. I never said one word to anybody there, but they are so positive. I have never been in a country where people don't have much and are more positive than anybody I've ever met in my life, And so that made me feel really good because they were like taking care of me. And so I ended up staying a week longer than what I had expected because I didn't want to come home. When I finally came home, I had to think about what I wanted to do. Now I'd retired, what do I want to do with my life? And being a travel agent, I knew that I'd do something in travel, but I didn't really know exactly what. So the first thing I did was I booked a trip to South Africa because I wanted to see what the difference was in South Africa, all of the southern countries in Africa. Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, all of them. And I took a trip. I spent 2 years traveling around Africa because I really needed to know what the difference was in those countries as opposed to Tanzania. And so I found out. And what kept me going back is the people. The people. That's what kept me going. I'm not saying that any other country is the people are not friendly or welcoming, but I felt more at home in Tanzania. I felt like they got me.
Give me an example of somebody from Tanzania that you connected with.
I connected with everybody there.
Is there any individual that you could give us a little character about how you guys got along or what they did?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you about my driver.
Awesome.
Okay. My driver, because at a certain point, I decided I was going to take groups to Tanzania. But before that happened, my girlfriend wanted to go to Africa because she had a cruise agency and we were going to go into business together. And so we decided to put on a presentation at my house, like I do that, and talk about Africa. That night we had the presentation. She died at my house. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. She fell over and had a heart attack. And so now here I go again. What do I do? How do I do this? I didn't know how to start a travel agency. I was going to be working with her. So that took me some time to get over. And I ended up having to research how to start my own travel agency. Just because I was in travel, I didn't know anything about the back office or the administration or any of that. I knew how to book trips. I knew how to, to do all of that, but I didn't know what I really needed to know. So it took me about a year. And once I decided I was going to do that, I opened up my agency. It took me a year to actually get credentialed and do all the things that I had to do. Um, and then I took a group back to South Africa. It was a test group. They didn't know it. I wanted to see what their feelings were about the trip. So I took them. And it was my gift to them because it was my family. But it was hard to talk them into it. My cousin said, oh, I don't know, it's just way too far. I go to Jamaica all the time. That's about all I can take is 5 hours on the plane. My niece, who was also going to go, said, I'm in school. I'm not really sure I want to go. And I said, and her husband said, well, if she doesn't go, can I go?
Smart man.
So eventually they both decided, God, this is a trip of a lifetime. Why would I say no? And so they both went. I had met, not at that time, but at a period of time, I was kind of I wasn't looking to do a business myself. I was looking at who I could work with. And so I started working with another company. For 2 years, I had a driver. And I didn't really like the way the company operated, but I didn't know anybody else. So I used him for 2 years. And he took me on safari. He took all my guests. I was booking groups and he took all of them. And then at some point I decided, I wonder if I could do this myself, but I didn't know how. And there was a company that I booked and I really liked the driver. And I thought if I ever had a company, he would be the kind of person that I would work with because he was so personable. He would make people see things that even weren't there. I mean, he would point out something, and these guys, they can see a chameleon way like 10 miles away.
Wow.
I mean, that's how good they are. And he was so personable, and he spoke English better than I do. So,
Wow.
because they speak Swahili there, but he spoke English. He speaks it almost like a European, but he's not from Europe, but he's very, very good. So I thought if I ever started a company, I would like somebody like him, not even thinking about him specifically, because he worked for the most expensive company that is in Africa. And he was like 60% of their business.
Oh, wow.
So no way I could match that. I just went on and continued to work with this company, but he kept pursuing me. He kept saying, because they all think Americans have money. Okay. He didn't know. I was broke, and he probably would never talk to me if he did. So he actually asked me if I ever thought about having a company on my own, and I said, yeah, but I could never afford that car. I couldn't afford, to do it. And then he actually explained to me how I could do it, without putting out $100,000 for a new car, So he explained that to me, and he was one of the local Africans. He had a farm. He has a family. He has 4 kids, and he would be working like maybe 10 months out of the year, and then they'd be off for 2 months, and he'd go farm, and then he'd come back to work. And I think he was getting a little tired of that, and he asked me if what was my thoughts about starting a business. And of course, I'd never started a business, so I had no idea. And Africa is a male-dominated society, And how in the hell did I think, oh,
No, that's
how did I think I was going to come to Africa, me, an American, and then, ingratiate myself to the people of Africa, the men in Africa who run the businesses, because at that time, there were no women really running the business that I saw. And so I had to think about that as well. And because I didn't really want to work with someone who was going to tell me what to do. I mean, I'm pretty strong that way. I might have not have been strong when I was sick, but I was pretty strong in getting my idea across. And I told him I wasn't sure that I could work in Africa because that I could work with somebody in Africa because I wasn't used to somebody telling me what to do. And I
Fair
think
enough.
he was less than uh, accommodating, really, let me say. Um, but he was the kind of person that was open to new ideas. And at first, he thought I was very mean because I would say, no, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it this way. And he would say, why? And I said, because that's what Americans want, you know. And you've taken Americans on safari, but you've also taken other nationalities and they operate differently. And he said, well, I like Americans. I like Americans. I have fun with Americans. And I said, well, you're going to have fun with my groups too. If we work together, you're going to have a lot of fun. I said, but you have to be part of the safari family, not just a driver, because there are hundreds of companies in Africa where they're just drivers. And he's a wildlife safari expert, so he knows everything about Tanzania and everything about any animal, any bird, or any grass that you see in Africa. Wow. So right away we developed a friendship, and he realized that I wasn't mean, that I really just knew what I wanted. And what I wanted was not going to be what he was doing for the last 20 years with his company. It was going to be something different. We're going to make it more personal. We're going to make it more customized, you know. And so he showed me how I could navigate getting the car, which I got. And then we decided to upgrade the car, so it was a 4-seater. We had it stretched to a 6-seater.
Oh, wow.
And we put in all the things that I wanted, cup holders, everything, in there. And he said, oh, wow.
Fancy.
Yeah. But I have gotten my money's worth on that car for the last 20 years, and we've continued to upgrade the car when we can. The car, when we got it, only had, I think, 4,000 kilometers on it. And so it was pretty much a new car. He told me that you can't buy a car that's been used on safari. You have to buy a car that's been used for transportation. So we bought a Red Cross car,
Wow.
so it didn't have a lot of miles on it. And so from that day forward, we agreed that we would work together. I would bring all my groups and I would be accompanying the groups, and he would be the principal driver. And 2 days later, at least 20 people called me and asked me for a job. They wanted to be the driver.
They heard it through the grapevine.
Yeah. They wanted to be the driver, including the first driver I had when I worked for 2 years with that company. But he really didn't speak English well, and I couldn't even consider that. So that was 20 years ago, and he's still with me today, and he still makes the safari.
Oh, wow.
He makes the safari. He's so good that everybody I take would feel comfortable going back without me to be with him.
Because he connected.
Yes. And everybody knows him. And now everybody knows me. And we have a good relationship. His son is now driving for me. His son is 26 years old. He's been out of school for maybe 5 years. And so he's driving for me as my second driver. And then I have a female driver also that works with me. So, that's how I got started, and that's how I continue. And I continue to sell out my safaris a year in advance. So I'm in 2025 now. I sold those trips in 2024. And so now I'm sold out in 2025.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah. So,
how many do you do in a year?
I started out doing 8 safaris a year. I am now down to 3 or 4, but I go back to back. I go April, May, and June, maybe July, and then I come home. So I'm there 3 or 4 months, And the thing about what I do is that now, I know and I understand Tanzania. I understand the people there. I've met a lot of friends there. I have a place to stay when I'm there. So it's like a second home to me now. And I really enjoy going, but I don't want to go again for 8 months in a row. I can't do that anymore.
How long is the plane ride?
I describe it as 5 movies.
Okay.
And 5 more.
Oh, dang.
Who's moving in 2 hours, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a 20-hour trip.
Oh, geez.
10 hours on one plane, 10 hours on another plane, but it's a breeze, believe me. Because really people say that's a long trip, but then the next week they tell me they're going to China. It's the same different distance. China, Hong Kong, Australia, they're all the same. So,
I want to ask you,
yeah,
so your story is incredible. Like the stuff that you went through and the tragedy, for a lot of people, I don't know if they could get themselves out of that depression.
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's
So
really hard.
what do you think was the driving force? Because there's something obviously there. Because even just as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of struggle in starting your own business, let alone
Yep.
all the way
Yeah.
across on the other side of the planet, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think that is that made you have that strength to keep going and push yourself forward?
I think that I'm a strong person. I think that I knew in going through all this that I couldn't live like that. It was depressing living like that because you're just wishing the days away, you know. Um, and I didn't have anything else in my life, so I had to think about what I wanted to do. Now I could have gone back to work, but actually it was a perfect time for me to retire because the whole company was changing, you know. And then I didn't want to get involved in that changeover when I didn't have my life together. Um, Sometimes I ask myself, why could I not have accepted all of those things that happened the way I see some people, but I know people react differently. They could be close, they could not be close together with their family. I mean, a lot of things could cause that. I was very close to my brothers, and they helped me out a lot. And I think I was too devastated to not live, maybe I just felt guilty about enjoying life, and they were gone. But I knew that I wanted to do something, number one, to help others. I didn't know what that would be. I'm not rich, and I'm not someone who could just give money away. But I knew that I could do things to help. I started a nonprofit over there at a children's home.
Hmm.
It's run by a former Black Panther of the chapter of the Kansas City Black Panthers. Okay, that was 60 years ago. He lives in Tanzania. He's in exile, and he became my best. He didn't kill anybody. He's in exile because he's very vocal. And during the 60s, police just wanted to get them off the street, so he had to leave. So he left. He's in Tanzania. He's been in Tanzania for 60 years. So he runs a children's home there, 28 kids. Most of them now have gone through high school, which me and my company have helped support to get them through the education. I didn't know I wanted to do this, but when I went over there, I read about him in the Los Angeles Times, and I told my driver, we have to find him, because I had just told my driver, we need something else on this trip to make it special, more special. And so we found him. But back to your question, I'm not sure what in me, other than having the strength and the courage enough to know that I couldn't live like that. Maybe for some people, they could live like that. It's easy to live like that because it's easy to slide into a depression where you don't have to do anything. You just sit there and wait for the days to come and pass. And that wasn't me. That wasn't me. But I wasn't doing anything with my life. So I think it's really that I've always been the kind of person who wants to do something, who wants to always be busy, who wants to give and do with other people, and deal with other people. I wasn't just happy by myself laying in bed wishing the day away. I just wasn't that kind of person. So that's the only thing that I could tell you.
So there are so many rabbit holes I could go down right now. Questions I have about the depression, questions I have about your siblings and about those empty days when all you had is your thoughts to sit with. And I know that um, that's some deep stuff, and it's it's difficult. But I also know that there are a lot of people out there that are struggling with a very similar situation, and that's why to me it's so important that people that have struggled in some way come out and talk about it. And it's good for you because you're getting it off your chest, you're able, but you don't know how powerful that could be for somebody that is so.
You're right. I
Yeah.
don't. I didn't know. I had been writing a journal for those 20 years. I said I was going to write a book, right? I wrote that book last year and I had it published. And
What's the book?
it's called From Tragedy to Tanzania. you know.
Fitting.
So one of my networking friends, I sat and had lunch with her, and she said, "You need to tell the story. Somebody that you don't know or you do know may be going through something similar, and they want to talk to you or they want to hear your story about how you came out of it." I never really thought about it like that, until she told me that, there's people, and I know there's people out there, but I wasn't thinking about my story because I said to her, well, everybody's got a story. People have things happen in their life all the time and they rise above it. But I could not rise above it at that time. I could not, until I really gave it the thought about not wanting to live that way.
So we're gonna be a hard stop at 8 o'clock. We got 5 minutes. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask Safari?
Sure. Obviously, only those who have read your book, thanks for getting me an autographed copy, would have any insight into your story. But those who meet you on a regular basis as a businesswoman have no idea what you've been through. So many more people need to hear your story. Hopefully, they'll hear it through this medium, maybe through your next book, through other opportunities. It's really insightful. It's really valuable. And your friend was absolutely right. You don't know who needs to hear your story and be able to relate to it and figure out, well, you overcame it and you're a successful businesswoman, so others can do it too. People have no idea how old you are, but you look a lot younger than.
You gotta love stop.
You look amazing.
That's okay because I'm not ashamed to admit it now. I'm 80 years old.
See, now everyone's shocked. Everyone's shocked, right? But you know what?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm still operating, so age is a number, right? But
That in and of itself is inspiring. That in your late 70s you wrote a book that people want to read. So that's really something.
Thank you, Saul.
Phenomenal.
Awesome.
I have a question that's off, so much of the story. I'm very curious, and probably for those that are listening, what consists of your safari? So if somebody was going to go on your safari, what could they expect to experience?
Well, let me see. How do I put this? First of all, they're not going to have any expectations. Most of the people actually, believe it or not, have gone because they do know me and they feel comfortable because I'm traveling with them. So when they get to Africa, they're like, oh, I don't know exactly what they were expecting, and they're not sure either. But the first thing is people do think it's dangerous. There are lots of parts in Africa that are dangerous that I don't travel to. But in Tanzania, you could feel like you're at home. You're not going to be living in a shack. And yes, you might be in a tent, but it's the kind of tent you're going to want to be in, It's like, some of it is like 6-star, 7-star, everything is en suite, which means it has a bathroom and a shower inside. We're not going to any outhouse outside. They don't expect the animals to be right here, and they're surprised because we don't get close to the animals. We might stop here and the animal might be way over there, but an animal always seems to come to you. So, and because my driver actually talks about the animals, the habitat, who they are, what they do, it's an educational experience as well because they have no idea that lions climb trees until they see one on top of a tree, they right. And there have been 2 people on safari that asked me, when do they feed the animals?
Wow.
We're in the wild, nobody feeds these animals, but they were serious. They were serious, believe me. So I think that there's so many things that they didn't expect, that they're thrilled that they are experiencing it. And they're not in a Volkswagen. They're in a 6-seater Land Cruiser. They say in Africa, if you want to go anywhere in Africa, you buy a Land Rover. But if you want to go and come back, you buy a Land Cruiser. So we have a Land Cruiser. Yeah. So I think that they don't really have expectations, but at the end, they say that I met and exceeded whatever expectations they might have had. So does that answer your question?
They're on the ride that you're going to get there.
Yes, yes. And it's an out of the box experience. It's a different experience. It's not like anything. It's not like walking on a tour. It's nothing like that, And so they don't really know what to expect. But I can tell you that. And excuse me, my eyes watering, but it's not. I'm not crying now. I have this problem here. But so I think that they are pleasantly surprised, because everywhere they walk into, it's like, we're staying here. Or, oh, look at that view, or, oh my God, there's elephants, that kind of thing. So they're really surprised that the first gentleman I took on safari said, I never expected to see a lion this close. He was like, right there, And so I think that they have no expectation, but what they see is more than what they would have expected if they did have it.
And how much would it normally cost?
I have safaris for all different price ranges. I think the highest price range I've done. Well, first of all, my mission when I started my business was, number one, to have a safari that most people who think they can't afford it can. That was my first mission. Because the first thing that everybody asks is that I can't afford $10,000, So I just did a safari for April this year, $58.75 minus the airfare. So you get your ticket, and I gave a $1,200 credit. So the trip was $46, $4,600. So and it's a 7-day trip. I would do a 9 or 10-day or 11-day trip for somewhere in the neighborhood of 7,000 maybe. And for those people who want to come back, those are the ones who are going to pay $15,000 or $20,000, because now they know the value of Africa. They've been here, they've seen the properties. Now they maybe want to stay at a higher end property or something, and so they will pay more. And I usually don't advertise those prices because most
Scare people away.
Yeah, will scare people away. So, but I want people to know that you really can afford it.
Uh,
Thank you.
okay, Safari. Okay.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm Tony, and I'm the guy that spent 15 months in
Gabon.
Libreville, Gabon.
Yeah.
And it was an experience. But one thing I did regret is that I didn't go on safari. I was 19 years
Yeah.
old,
And
and I was just
what would you know about
I was working at the
Yeah.
American Embassy. I was in Africa and
Yeah.
thrilled that blessed.
Yeah.
But you answered my question, because I was wondering, where does the booking of your safari start? And you said once you get your airfare there, then it's from that point to whatever 7-10 days or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. And and I actually lead you all the way. I could give you a travel preparation book. I tell you everything you have to do, because I am not going to have anybody going on the trip that doesn't have all this done beforehand.
Right.
So I talk to people over there. I talk to people who book online who end up at the same place I'm staying after they've already stayed at 2 places that they did not like, So I make sure that you have all this information before you go. There are some things that most travel agents don't know. I was one of those agents before I start booking Africa. And I can tell you that you are never going to get the information that you need to go on a trip. Maybe the tour company will give it to you, but there are some things that you have to know before you go, because otherwise you get over there and you'll be really, really upset that you didn't do something.
And so looking for that, would they try to find you, or could they go to a travel agent to look for a safari, or would it?
It's my company. I am the agent, so I don't work with other travel agents. So I put everything together from beginning to end. It's a custom safari, so it's not cookie cutter. I don't have every May you go here, I don't have that.
Is that each or a couple
What?
that costs?
It's per person.
This per
Per
person?
person. $4,000, $5,000, $8,000, $10,000.
And $1 million.
Yeah. I'm not there yet.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
You do it, man.
If you want to sign up, you have to sign up for 2026 now.
Nice. Good problem.
Give me enough time to save up.
Yes, that's right. I give everybody a year. Usually all my trips are a year out so that people have time to pay. And, it's my company. So I'm a little flexible with how you pay as long as you have the final payment by the time that you need it, which is 90 days prior to travel.
Always on the trip with everybody as well.
So far I have been. And 2026, that might change, but we'll see. Depends upon the factor of the body, right?
Other things that work.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anything else? Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I feel blessed to be able to do it. I've met a lot of friends, and believe me, let me just say this. Africa is a place that you want to go if you want to have this experience, because those animals are not going to be there for the rest of your life. In my lifetime, maybe they'll be there. In some of your lifetimes, I guarantee you they won't be like it is now. It's China is coming over there. They want the rhino horns, they want the elephant tusk. So there's poaching, there's oil drilling, there's animal stealing, there's the Middle East coming in and doing all kinds of things. I'm telling you, this is not my idea. You can look online and you can see all the things that are happening. You won't know exactly where or when or what, but I can tell you that it's happening.
Wow.
Yeah, it is a shame. It is a shame. So I want to be the one to take you while it's still there. So if you want to go,
That sounds
talk to me.
that's reasonable too. You have a whole year to save up, even if it's okay, $7,000, which is probably your mid package or whatever, 7,000, and you have
Yeah.
a whole year to save up for that. I think a lot of people could do that.
A lot of
Put their
people
minds to
have.
it.
People on Social
Yeah.
Security, people on unemployment. You'd be surprised. If they want to go, they'll figure out a way.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't go to Hawaii.
I said that too.
Totally, yeah. Drop my drop.
I can show you pictures, and I always ask, so where do you think this picture is? And then I put Tanzania next to it. But actually, they're both Tanzanian. I mean, Tanzania has some beautiful beaches on the Indian Ocean in Zanzibar. Yeah.
So the only thing I want to, I guess, the message that's like really hitting me hard is that, with people, if you're a human, we all suffer from the human condition. You are going to suffer. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And some of the best things in life have come from some of the worst things in life. And a lot of that is driven by a conscious decision. You have to make a choice that you are going to push forward, that you are going to do something positive. And what I've found is that when you involve other people in your plans, I'm going to help that person, I'm going to help that group, I'm going to do something, and you're separating yourself, that gives you the fuel to make it happen. And again, trajectory, how I see it, is bringing people together. And we have these amazing stories. Yours is up there, amazing story. A lot of people are going to get a lot of great insights from it. But it's not just receiving those insights. It's being able to be in position to help others. And that's where I'm happy that everybody is here tonight. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for you. I'm very grateful for Jason. And if you have, not you, Derek, I'm not really grateful. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely grateful. we got some amazing people in this group. We really do, and they're all givers, and we got some talented people in different directions. And so I invite you and everybody else to come back and be part of what we're doing to help others. Be part of the good because you have that choice, but you have to make that choice. So
I really appreciate it. Sometimes telling the story is cathartic. Initially, I didn't want to tell it. You know, when I first went through this, I couldn't tell it. I couldn't get through it. And so at some point it became cathartic to talk about it because you talk to other people and you talk about the things that are happening in their life, you know, and it's something that you have learned from and you could tell others, you know, there is life on the other side, you know, because for so long I thought there wasn't, you know, but when I see somebody struggling with something, it feels good to be able to be that person to help them through whatever it is, whatever storm they're going through.
I think we can end on that. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here. I don't know. So, meeting adjourned and whatever else. Voila, bam. El Benito.